Do you really think this will work? Rihan's voice was half nervous, half excited as he flipped through the slides on his laptop. I leaned back, smiling. It has to. We've been working on this for 8 months. If it doesn't, I'll probably start selling tea outside the office. He laughed. You'd still find a way to charm investors. Tea or not charm. No, hard work maybe, I said, glancing at the sketch of our logo on the whiteboard. Dreamcart. One app, thousands of local stores online. That's the future, Rihan. People just don't see it yet. Rihan adjusted his glasses, his fingers tapping on the table. You really believe in this, huh? I have to, I said softly. It's all I have. The office was small, 2 tables, 1 flickering bulb, and a fan that made more noise than wind. But to me, it felt like a castle. Every night I worked there after my shift at the marketing firm. Felt closer to something real, something mine. My phone buzzed. Maya flashed on the screen. Answer her, Rehan said, grinning. You're a lucky charm. I rolled my eyes but picked up. Hey, Angel. Her voice came through, soft and teasing. You're still working, aren't you? Guilty, I said. Just finalizing the presentation for tomorrow's pitch. Don't stay too late. You promised you'd eat something decent tonight, she said. And stop drinking energy drinks. You sound like a machine. I'm a man with a dream, I joked. Machines don't get nervous before investor meetings. She laughed, that warm sound that made everything feel lighter. You'll do great, Arav. You always do. Just don't forget why you started this. I started it for us, I said quietly. So one day you won't have to worry about anything. For a second, she didn't reply. Then she whispered, I believe in you. Those words settled in me like a prayer. When I hung up, Rihan raised an eyebrow. You're serious about her, aren't you? Serious enough to build a future for her, I said. He smiled, but something flickered in his eyes, just for a second. I brushed it off. You ready for tomorrow? As ready as a man walking into a lion's den, he said, chuckling. If we pull this off, we're set. I laughed. When we pull this off, you mean? We work through the night? Rihan reviewed numbers while I fixed the pitch deck. Between yawns, we talked about everything, our dreams, our parents, the impossible things we'd make possible. You know, he said, breaking a long silence, people like us don't usually make it far. No big names behind us. No fancy degrees. I looked up from the screen. That's exactly why we'll make it. We've got something they don't. Hunger. He smirked. You always talk like some movie hero. Then tomorrow's our big scene, I said. Laughing morning sunlight crept through the window. My mother called just as I was tying my shoes. Beta, she said, her voice tired but warm. Did you sleep at all? Not really, I admitted. But I'm ready. Remember she said, dreams don't die if your heart stays honest. I smiled. You've been saying that since I was 10, Ma. And you still need to hear it, she replied. Now go. Show them what honesty looks like. Her faith always felt heavier than my fear. At the investor's office, my palms were slick with sweat. Rehan stood beside me, calm and confident. We exchanged a nod before stepping in. There were 5 investors, all in suits that cost more than our whole startup. I began with a smile. Good morning. My name is Arav Khan, and this is my partner, Rihan Malik. We're here to introduce Dreamcart, a way to bring small businesses online without breaking their wallets. For 30 minutes. I talked like my life depended on it, because it did. Rihan explained the numbers, the growth model, the scalability. They asked questions, tested us, doubted us. But we held our ground when it ended. One of them leaned back. Interesting idea. You're both ambitious. We'll think about it. Outside the glass doors, I exhaled like I'd been underwater for hours. Rehan grinned. You were brilliant, man. You were brilliant, I corrected. Think they'll say yes? He shrugged. Maybe, maybe not. Either way, we showed them we're worth listening to. As we walked out, Maya waited by the car. When she saw me, she ran up and hugged me tight. How'd it go? She asked eagerly. Better than I hoped, I said, grinning. Even if they don't invest, I know this is just the beginning. She looked at me like she wanted to believe that too. You're glowing, Arav. It's just sweat, Rehan joked. We all laughed, and for a brief moment, everything felt simple bright. But as I looked at Rehan, I noticed something. He was smiling, but his eyes weren't. They had a sharpness, a flicker of thought I couldn't read. "What's up?" I asked. "Nothing," he said quickly. "Just thinking how far we've come," I nodded, forcing a grin. "And how far we'll go." That night, back in our tiny office, I stared at the whiteboard filled with plans. Rehan was silent, lost in his own world. Maya texted me a heart emoji and said, "Proud of you." I smiled, replying, "Just the start." But as I looked at Rehan again, that same glint returned in his eyes. Quiet, unreadable, dangerous. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself he was my brother, and I told myself the world was perfect. Too perfect. "Rehan, you've been acting weird lately," I said, watching him pack his laptop. "You missed 2 meetings this week." He didn't look up. "Just busy. New contacts, new ideas. You should try it too. New ideas?" I frowned. "We're supposed to be working together." He zipped his bag. "Yeah, about that maybe we're holding each other back." Wait. My heart stumbled. "What do you mean?" "Relax," he said with a small grin. "I'm just exploring other projects. You can handle Dreamcart for a bit." I laughed uneasily. "You mean our dream cart?" "You're not leaving." He smiled again, but it didn't reach his eyes. "We'll talk later." The door closed before I could say another word. That evening I called Maya. "He's been off lately," I said. "Like he's hiding something." She sighed. "Maybe he's tired. You both work too much." "Maya, this is serious," I pressed. "We built this from nothing. He's not supposed to just vanish mid-project." She hesitated. "Arav, maybe you're overthinking it. Not everyone shares your obsession." "Obsession?" I repeated. "You call my dream an obsession?" "I call it unhealthy," she said flatly. "You've stopped living. Every conversation is about your app, your friends, your code, your big dreams." "Those dreams include you," I reminded her softly. "Maybe that's the problem," she muttered. Silence heavy, cold silence. I tried to laugh it off. "You're joking, right?" She didn't answer. "Maya," I said quietly, "what's happening?" "I just think maybe we want different things." Her voice trembled, but it wasn't sadness. It was guilt. "You're too small-minded for where I'm going." "Araf." The line cut before I could respond. For a full minute, I stared at the phone like it had spoken in another language. Too small-minded. The words sliced deeper than any knife. The next day, I went to the shared office. Rehan's desk was empty. His files, his hard drive, even his sticky notes, gone. Tahir, our part-time intern, looked at me nervously. "Sir?" "He came last night. Said he was moving out." "Did he say why?" I asked, my voice shaking. Tahir scratched his head. "Just that he was. Starting something new? He said you'd understand." Understand? One didn't. Not yet. 2 days later, the answer found me. I was scrolling through my phone when a post stopped me cold. Rehan Malik presents Shop Link, empowering local stores to go digital. My logo, my pitch, my words, and beside him, Maya in a red dress. Smiling for the cameras, I read the caption 3 times before I felt the air leave my lungs. It wasn't just a betrayal, it was theft. A public execution of my faith. I called Rehan straight. To voicemail, I called Maya. Line rang once, then blocked. My phone slipped from my hand and hit the floor. The sound echoed louder than my thoughts. Rain began that night, sudden and harsh. I stood outside the cafe where we used to plan our future. Neon signs reflected in puddles like mockery. I refreshed the news page again and again. Their photos were everywhere. Haren Malik and his partner Maya. Ali announced groundbreaking app for small businesses. Partner, the word felt poisonous. A man walked by, muttering, "Hey, isn't that the new startup everyone's talking about?" Brilliant idea. I wanted to scream that it was mine, but my voice wouldn't come out. Instead, I just stood there, drenched, clutching my phone like a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. TAHI found me there, hours later. "Sir, you should go home. You'll get sick home," I said bitterly. "What's that? A place where dreams go to die?" He hesitated, then whispered, "You're better than them." "Oh?" I looked at him. The rain blurred my vision, or maybe my eyes did. Am I? Then why does it feel like they won? Back in my small apartment, everything looked foreign. The walls were too quiet. My mother's photos smiled at me from the shelf. I whispered, "I'm sorry, Ma. I failed." My phone buzzed again, another notification. Ali Raza, Maya's brother. A message. "Are off by, I don't know how to say this, but I warned her not to do it. Rihan convinced her you'd hold her back. She said she wanted more than promises." I typed back, "She got what she wanted." He replied, "Rihan's not what he seems. Be careful." I stared at the message for a long time before turning the phone off. Careful? The damage was already done. The next morning, social media exploded. Rehan was trending. Investors were praising his innovation. Maya's interview clip played everywhere, her voice confident, her smile flawless. Someone asked her, where did the idea come from? She smiled and said, "It was a team effort." Team, I laughed loud, broken laughter that echoed in my empty room. A part of me wanted to break something. Another part wanted to disappear, but somewhere in that chaos, a strange calm began to rise. I stood before the mirror, hair dripping, eyes hollow. They took everything. I whispered to my reflection. My idea? My trust. My heart. The reflection didn't pity me, it stared back like a stranger I hadn't met yet. Then, from deep inside, the words came out not as a cry, but as a vow. "I'll rise again," I said, my voice low, steady. Not to beg, not to prove, but to make them remember my name. The man in the mirror didn't smile. He just nodded, like he already knew what was coming next, and outside. The rain kept falling, washing away everything that was weak in me. "I swear, Arav, I didn't expect this from you." Tahir's words cut deeper than any knife. He wouldn't even look me in the eye. "You really think I'd steal my own idea?" I asked, my voice trembling between anger and disbelief. He shrugged, stepping back. "Everyone's saying it, bro." Rihan showed the investors the exact same proposal. "Maybe you both worked on it together, but what?" I snapped. "But I'm the one left with nothing while he walks away with the credit?" Tahir hesitated, then muttered, "Just fix yourself, man. You're not the same." When the door shut behind him, the silence screamed. My phone buzzed again and again. Rejection emails, loan reminders, messages I didn't have the courage to open. By evening, I was sitting on the floor of my apartment, surrounded by papers that used to mean everything. Business plans, pitch decks, dreams now ashes without flame. Then came the hospital call. "Mr. Araf, your mother's condition has worsened. We need to discuss her treatment options." I rushed there, half broken, half numb. She lay pale under white sheets, eyes weak but warm. "Amy," I whispered, holding her hand. She smiled faintly. "You look tired, Beta. Did you eat?" "Don't worry about me," I said, forcing a smile. "Everything will be fine soon." Her eyes searched mine. "You've always been the honest one. Don't let the world change that." But it already had. By the third week, the hospital bills stacked higher than my pride. I sold my laptop, then my bike. The one thing I didn't sell was my silence, because words couldn't save me anymore. Ali Raza, my old colleague, met me outside a job interview. "They won't hire you, Arav." Words out. Rihan told everyone you tried to scam investors, and my jaw clenched. And they believed him? Why wouldn't they? He said quietly, "He has Maya. She's the face of the company now." Maya, the name alone burned. That night, I walked home in the rain. Streetlights blurred like melting memories. I opened my phone. Their photos flooded my feed. Rehan smiling in front of a billboard with our company logo. Maya beside him, wearing the same confidence she once used to comfort me. My fingers shook as I scrolled. Post after post, caption after caption, proud of what we built together. Together. I dropped the phone. The splash echoed louder than thunder. I screamed into the empty street. You stole everything. My voice broke midair. No one answered. By dawn, I wasn't crying anymore. Just staring blank, hollow, done. 3 days later, I was sitting outside a cafe, half soaked, half broken, when I heard a familiar voice. Arif Khan. I looked up. Sarah, my old classmate, the one who always sat in the corner, quiet but fierce. She sat down without asking. You look like you wrestled the world and lost. Pretty much, I muttered. She studied me for a while. Rehan and Maya. I froze. You heard? Everyone heard, she said softly. But I didn't believe it. You were never the kind to cheat. That doesn't matter anymore, I said. In this world, the truth doesn't win. The loudest voice does. Sarah leaned forward. Then maybe it's time you get louder. I laughed bitterly. With what? I've got nothing left. Not money, not reputation, not even hope. She interrupted. I didn't answer. She smiled faintly. You don't need revenge yet, Arav. You need power first. Her words hung in the air like a spark waiting for fuel. Power. I repeated. Yes, she said firmly. When you're weak, they pity you. When you're strong, they fear you. Choose which one you want. I looked away, raindrops still dripping from my hair. I wanted to build something honest, and do it again, she said. But smarter this time. Stronger. Colder. Something inside me shifted. A strange calm, a quiet flame. I whispered. No tears left. Only work. Sarah smiled. Good, because ashes don't cry, they rise. For the first time in weeks, I breathed without breaking. The pain was still there, but it wasn't killing me anymore. It was shaping me. I looked at her, then at the distant skyline where dreams once burned. They'll remember my name. I said softly. Make sure they whisper it with fear, she replied. The rain stopped. The silence felt lighter. And just like that, Arav Khan died in that moment. But something far stronger was born in his place. I can't believe I'm doing this again, I muttered. Staring at the flickering laptop screen, Sarah laughed from across the small cafe table. You said that yesterday too? And the day before that? That's because it still feels unreal, I said. From losing everything to creating Facebook ads for small shops. Not exactly the redemption arc I imagined, she smirked. Every empire starts with one ad click. I rolled my eyes, but her words stuck. She had this strange way of making ordinary sentences sound like prophecies. For weeks, I've been taking freelance gigs, social media posts, logo designs, ad copy, anything that paid enough to keep the lights on. I'd work late into the night, fueled by instant noodles and a stubborn refusal to give up. One evening, Sarah sent me a message. Client interested. Don't mess this one up. The next morning, I found myself on a video call with a restaurant owner. So, Arav, the man said, chewing on a pen cap. You think you can help us get customers? I don't think, I said. I know. He raised an eyebrow. Confident, desperate, I admitted with a grin. He laughed. Fine, kid. Show me what you've got. That small deal brought me $50, but it felt like 50,000. The first real win since everything collapsed. Sarah called that night. How does it feel? Like breathing after drowning, I said quietly. That's the sound of rebuilding. She replied. Days turned into weeks. I learned analytics, algorithms, and how to turn strangers into customers. Every project built a little more of me back. My work started spreading through word of mouth. And soon, I was handling multiple clients at once. One afternoon, as I sipped lukewarm coffee at the same cafe, Sarah said, You ever thought of building your own brand? I looked up. You mean, like a company? She nodded. You already have the skill. Why keep hiding behind other people's logos? I hesitated. The last time I had a company, it nearly destroyed me. I don't know, Sarah. What if she cut in sharply? What if you fail again? Then fail better. But don't stay afraid. Her tone left no room for argument. That night, I opened a new file on my computer and typed a name at the top, Honesto Digital. It wasn't grand, but it was mine. A brand that would represent what I'd lost, integrity. Weeks later, I posted my first business ad online. 2 clients replied within hours. Then 4. Then 10.1 message stood out. Mr. Khan, I've been following your work. Can we meet in person? It was signed, Mr. Aro. Sarah grinned when I showed her the email. The Mr. Haroon, the investor from Bright Path Ventures? The same, I said, heartbeat rising. The next day, I walked into a glass-walled office where success smelled like polished wood and quiet confidence. Mr. Haroon stood by the window, phone in hand. He turned, his expression calm but curious. You're younger than I expected. Get that a lot, I said, forcing a smile. He motioned for me to sit. I've seen your campaigns. Clean, transparent, effective. You remind me of someone who hasn't been broken by shortcuts yet. Right, I admitted. But I learned the long way is the only one that lasts. He studied me for a moment, then leaned forward. How much would you need to scale? Scale, I echoed. Funding, he said simply. I don't invest in potential. I invest in persistence, and you have that. For a second, I couldn't breathe. You're serious? I don't joke about money, he said with a smile. Send me your business plan by Monday, Sarah nearly screamed when I told her. You did it. Not yet, I said, though my grin gave me away. That weekend, I worked nonstop. When I finally sent the plan, I whispered to myself, this time, no one steals it. By Thursday, his reply arrived. Approved. Welcome to the next chapter. I just stared at the screen. My hands trembled. Months of failure, humiliation, hunger, all leading here. Sarah called again. So how much did he invest? Enough, I said, voice thick. Enough to build from ruins. That night, when the first paycheck hit my account, I didn't celebrate. I just sat quietly, staring at the numbers on the screen. I thought of Amy's words, dreams don't die if your heart stays honest. I closed my eyes and whispered, I'm not done yet. For the first time in a long while, the world didn't feel like a punishment. It felt like a promise waiting to be fulfilled. And this time, I wasn't dreaming, I was building. The email hit my inbox on a quiet Monday morning. Subject: Urgent private meeting request from Maya Sharma. For a moment, I just stared at her name. It felt like seeing a ghost, familiar, but belonging to another life. Sarah noticed the look on my face. You okay? I hesitated. It's Maya. She raised an eyebrow. The Maya. I nodded. Sarah crossed her arms. What does she want? She says she needs to talk. Don't, Sarah said instantly. You owe her nothing.
I know,
I murmured, though my chest tightened. But maybe I owe it to myself to hear her once. Sarah sighed. Fine. Just remember who you are now, not who you were then. The cafe felt colder than usual that evening. Maya sat in the corner, head bowed, fingers trembling around her coffee cup. She looked different, smaller somehow. When she saw me, her eyes widened. Arav. I sat down across from her. You wanted to talk? She swallowed hard. You look different. Successful. Time changes people, I said evenly. Sometimes pain does it faster. Tears welled up in her eyes. I deserve that, said nothing. She took a deep breath. Rahan's company's collapsing. The investors pulled out. They found out about the fake reports, the bribes, everything. I kept my expression neutral. I heard, her lip trembled. He used me, Arav. Said he loved me, but he only wanted what I could bring. Your ideas, your plans. When it all crashed, he blamed me. I looked at her quietly. Did you ever stop him? She shook her head. I was stupid. I thought he loved me. I thought we were building something better than what you had. A bitter laugh escaped me. Better than honesty? Her shoulders slumped. You were right. You were always right. For a while, we just sat in silence. The hum of the cafe, the clink of cups, everything felt distant. Finally, she whispered, I came to say sorry. Sorry for what, exactly? I asked softly. For betraying me? For stealing everything I built? Or for realizing the grass wasn't greener? She winced. All of it. I can't sleep knowing what I did. I leaned back, folding my arms. Then maybe don't try to erase it. Just live with it, like I did. Her tears finally spilled. I deserve your anger, Arv. Yell at me, hate me, anything just. Don't look at me like that. How am I looking? I asked. Like you've forgotten me, she whispered. I paused, then said, I didn't forget, Maya. I just stopped remembering. She stared at me like she didn't recognize the man in front of her. And in truth, she didn't. The old me would have begged, shouted, demanded answers. This version simply didn't need them. She wiped her tears. He's ruined, Arav. Everyone's turning against him. He keeps calling me, but I blocked his number. I'm scared. I met her gaze. You chose your path. So did he. I wish I could undo it, she whispered. Then don't waste the lesson, I said quietly. Sometimes guilt is the only teacher we get. Her lips quivered. Do you hate me? I looked at her for a long time. No, I said finally. Hate takes energy. I spent mine building a life. That silence after my words was heavier than anything I could have screamed. She looked down at her untouched coffee. You've changed. I had to, I said. The man you knew died the day you both betrayed him. When I stood to leave, she grabbed my hand. Please, say something, anything. Don't walk away like this. I looked at her hand, soft, shaking. Desperate, and gently pulled it away. Maya, I said softly, some wounds stop bleeding, but they never forget where they came from. Her voice broke. So this is goodbye? I nodded. It always was. I turned and walked out into the cold air. The city lights shimmered on the wet pavement, and for the first time, I felt nothing. No pain, no rage, no longing, just peace. Behind me, through the glass. I could see her crying silently, not because I yelled, because I didn't. My silence was the loudest thing I'd ever said. It started with a single message. From unknown number subject, for your eyes only. Inside was a folder, dozens of files. Contracts, bank statements, fake reports. All of them with Rihan's name. I stared at the screen, barely breathing. What is this? Sarah leaned over my shoulder. Looks like someone just handed you a loaded gun. I didn't ask for this, I muttered. She folded her arms. No, but you earned it. Another message popped up. You don't know me, but I know what he did to you. My name's Zara. I worked for Rihan. I can't keep quiet anymore. Zara. I remembered that name from old company photos, one of his project heads. Do you think it's real? I asked. Sarah scanned a few files. Every document checks out. Rihan's been laundering investor money for months. The timestamps match the dates he launched her stolen project. I exhaled slowly. It's karma. Sarah looked at me carefully. What are you going to do? I hesitated. What I should have done long ago, tell the truth. The next morning, I walked into the office of the Daily Ledger, a leading digital news outlet. The receptionist blinked when I said, I have evidence of corporate fraud involving Rihan Malik, CEO of Vision Tech. Minutes later, I was sitting across from a sharp-eyed reporter named Aisha. She clicked her recorder on. Start from the beginning. I built a startup with him 2 years ago, I said. He stole everything. The concept, the investors, even my team. I stayed quiet, but now the proof speaks for itself. She looked through the files, her eyes widening. This is explosive. Offshore accounts, falsified invoices, and fake patents. I nodded. All signed by him. She looked at me. Why come forward now? I leaned back. Because lies always collapse under their own weight. I'm just helping gravity. Aisha smiled faintly. Poetic. I'll verify everything, but if this is legit, he's finished. Make sure it's the truth that finishes him, I said quietly. Not me. By evening, it was everywhere. Breaking news. Vision Tech, under investigation for fraud and data manipulation. I sat at my desk, scrolling through endless headlines. Reporters dissected every lie, every signature, every number. Rihan's empire was burning in real time. Sarah called, half shocked, half thrilled. You did it, Arav. It's all over the internet. It wasn't me, I said softly. It was the truth. Still, she said, it's poetic. He used your dream to build his kingdom, and now that kingdom's crumbling. I didn't reply. I just watched the live stream of Rayhan walking out of his glass office. Cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions he couldn't answer. His once perfect smile was gone, replaced by a hollow stare. 2 hours later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I already knew who it was, I answered. Rehan's voice was frantic. Arav, listen, whatever you've seen online, it's not what it looks like. I stayed silent. He continued, voice trembling. Someone framed me. I swear, you know me better than anyone. You have to help me clear this up. I let him talk, listening to the same desperation I once felt. You don't understand, he said. They're freezing my accounts. My investors are pulling out. Even Maya's gone. Please, Arav. I'll make it right. Just talk to the press for me. Tell them it's a misunderstanding. Why me? I asked quietly. Because you're the only one who still has integrity. They'll believe you. I almost laughed at the irony. Integrity. You only remember that word when you've run out of lies. Arav, please. No, I said firmly. You stole my dreams. Now you're living my nightmare. The line went dead. For a moment, I just sat there staring at the phone. My heart wasn't racing. My hands weren't shaking. There was no anger left, just peace. Sarah came into the room, holding her laptop. You need to see this. On the screen was a live interview. Aisha, the reporter, was on camera. New evidence confirms Vision Tech falsified multiple financial reports. Former employees are cooperating with investigators. She smiled slightly. Sources say a whistleblower named Zara exposed everything. Zara's face flashed briefly on screen, tired but unafraid. Sarah whispered, she did the right thing. She did, I agreed. And maybe so did I. That night I walked out onto the balcony. The city lights blinked below, unaware of the quiet war that had just ended. For the first time in years, I felt light, the ghosts of betrayal, the bitterness of loss all fading into something gentler. I didn't win by revenge. I won by becoming untouchable. My phone buzzed again, another message. He's been arrested. Thought you should know. Zara, I typed back. Thank you for your courage. A pause. Then her reply came. He used people. You restored faith. Maybe that's how justice works. I smiled faintly. Maybe it is, I whispered to myself. Sarah called out from inside. What now? You've got your justice. What's next? I looked up at the night sky. Next, I build again. But this time, higher. She laughed. You never stop, do you? I stopped once, I said, and they buried me alive. Never again. As I turned back inside, the news anchor's voice drifted from the TV. Rehan Malik faces multiple charges of fraud and embezzlement. His fall from grace marks one of the fastest corporate collapses in recent memory. I stopped for a second, letting the words sink in. The fall of the king. That's what the world called it. But to me, it was just balance. The universe doesn't forget, and neither do I. The morning sun spilled through my new office windows, soft and golden, like a quiet reminder that not all light burns at heels. My team was already busy, their laughter echoing faintly through the glass door. I stood there for a moment, holding a cup of coffee, thinking about how far I'd come. Sarah peeked in. You're zoning out again, she teased, crossing her arms. I smiled. Just remembering the ashes I came from. She leaned against the wall. That's the thing about ashes. They feed the soil. You rebuilt yourself right from it. I chuckled softly. You sound like a motivational speaker now, Sarah grinned. Well, you're paying me enough to be one. Her laughter faded as she placed a small envelope on my desk. This came for you. No sender, name just. This, I frowned, opening it. A single photo slipped out my mother's grave, with fresh white lilies resting on the stone. Beneath it, a note. I'm sorry. Maya, my chest tightened. I didn't realize I'd stopped breathing until Sarah said quietly, Do you want me to go with you? I shook my head. No, this one's mine. The graveyard was quiet, just the sound of leaves whispering and distant birds breaking the silence. I parked the car near the gate and saw her. Maya knelt beside the headstone, her shoulders trembling as she traced her fingers over my mother's name. I stayed behind a tree. Far enough to be unseen, but close enough to hear her voice carried by the wind. I'm sorry. Auntie, she whispered, her voice breaking. He didn't deserve what I did. None of it. I just wanted to survive, but I ended up destroying him. You always told me to choose kindness. Her words twisted something inside me. A part of me wanted to walk away, to protect the fragile peace I'd finally found. But another part, the quiet one, needed to hear it all. Maya sobbed softly. He's stronger now, I know. I see his name everywhere. He became everything we said he couldn't. Maybe that's my punishment, to watch him live without needing me. I stepped closer, my shoes crunching the gravel. She turned, startled. Rayan. Her voice carried disbelief and regret. Tears glistened in her eyes, but for the first time, I didn't feel that familiar sting in my chest. I just felt still. I didn't come here to blame you, I said quietly. You already did that to yourself. She wiped her face. I never wanted to hurt you. I thought, Rayan, I know what you thought, I interrupted gently. And maybe once, I would have shouted at you. Maybe even begged for an explanation. But not today. Her eyes widened. You're not angry? I was, I admitted. For a long time, anger was all I had left. It kept me alive when everything else was gone. But it's exhausting to live in a fire that never goes out. Maya looked down. I don't deserve forgiveness. I exhaled slowly. Maybe not. But I realized something neither did I. I didn't deserve to carry the guilt, the shame, the weight of your choices. So I'm done carrying it. She covered her mouth, tears spilling freely. You changed. Pain does that, I said softly. It teaches you to grow differently. The silence between us stretched, but it wasn't hostile anymore. It felt empty, in a good way, like a wound finally cleaned. Maya looked at the grave again. She was proud of you, wasn't she? She always was, I murmured. Even when I wasn't worth being proud of. She nodded, her voice trembling. Then maybe she's proud of me for coming here too. Maybe, I said, turning away. Goodbye, Maya. Her sobs followed me as I walked back toward the car, but for the first time, I didn't feel haunted by them. The past had stopped chasing me. Later that evening, I stood in my office again, staring out at the city lights. Sarah entered quietly. You went. I nodded. She said sorry. Sarah studied me. And you? I said goodbye. She smiled faintly. So it's over. It's not over, I corrected, my gaze still on the skyline. It's just quiet now. Sarah placed a hand on my shoulder. You look lighter. I am, I said. Because I finally forgave someone? Her. She asked softly. I smiled. No, myself. Sarah's eyes softened. That's the hardest kind of forgiveness. I nodded, whispering. But it's the one that sets you free. She squeezed my shoulder once, then left me alone. I stared at the city below, my reflection merging with the glass. For years I'd carried the weight of betrayal like armor, thinking it made me stronger. But strength, I'd learned, wasn't about carrying pain, it was about letting it go. The night sky shimmered with faint stars, each one a quiet reminder of everything I'd survived. I took a deep breath and smiled. For the first time, I whispered to the silence, I'm free. The auditorium lights blazed like a sunrise made of applause. Cameras flashed. Voices blended into a thunder I once dreamed about when no one believed I could stand again. My name, code across the stage, and for a second, it didn't feel real. Ladies and gentlemen, the host announced. Please welcome the Entrepreneur of the Year, Rayan Malik. The crowd roared. I froze at the edge of the stage, my heart thudding like it wanted to leap out. Sarah leaned close, whispering, "Go on, boss. You earned this one." I smiled faintly. Still feels strange hearing them cheer for me. That's because you got used to their silence, she replied. Now it's their turn to listen. I took the steps slowly, the sound of applause washing over me. For a moment, I saw their faces, some familiar, some strangers, but all looking at me like I'd done the impossible. Maybe I had. The host shook my hand. From a freelancer working out of cafes to leading one of the fastest growing startups in the country, Rayan, you've become an inspiration to millions. Tell us, what does this moment mean to you? I leaned toward the mic, the lights almost blinding. It means everything they said I couldn't be, I became. The hall fell quiet. I heard my voice echo back through the speakers, steady and sure. There was a time I couldn't afford a bus ticket, let alone a dream. But the world has a way of testing how badly you want something. I failed. I fell. I lost everything, but I didn't stop moving. Sarah watched from the front row, smiling proudly. I caught her gaze and continued. They mocked my silence back then. But what they didn't know was that my silence was becoming a storm. Applause thundered again. After the ceremony, reporters swarmed. One shoved a mic toward me. Rayan, what do you say to your critics now? The ones who once called you a fraud? I smirked. I don't say anything. Success does the talking. A younger reporter added, Do you ever think about Rihan? His company collapsed after those scandals. Any comment? I paused. Everyone faces their truth eventually. I faced mine years ago. Now it's his turn. The cameras flashed again. Another asked, and Maya Khan. She was linked to you during that scandal. Do you two still speak? My smile didn't falter. No, but I wish her peace. We all deserve a quiet ending. Sarah appeared at my side, cutting off the chaos. That's enough for tonight. Mr. Malik has a celebration to attend. As we walked out of the hall, I asked, You think I sounded too cold? She laughed softly. You sounded like someone who finally stopped bleeding. Later that night, I drove through the city that once broke me. Billboards glowed with my company's name, Rayverse Digital. My mother used to say, The sky never forgets the ones who reach for it. Maybe she was right. We stopped at a red light near an old street I hadn't visited in years. That's when I saw her, Maya. She was standing outside a small store, closing the shutters. A simple sign read, Maya's Boutique. Her hair was tied back, her clothes plain, her movements slow. But her smile, it wasn't fake anymore. Sarah noticed me staring. You okay? Yeah, I said quietly. Just a ghost from a different life. Want to say something to her? I shook my head. No need. Some stories end better in silence. Maya looked up for a moment, her eyes scanning the traffic. I don't know if she saw me, but I hoped she did. Maybe she'd understand that I wasn't angry anymore, that I'd finally found peace. The light turned green. I drove on. At the after-party, laughter filled the air. Investors, partners, journalists, they all wanted a piece of the success story. But my mind drifted somewhere higher. I slipped out onto the balcony, where the city lights stretched endlessly. Sarah joined me, holding 2 glasses of champagne. You disappeared again. I'm better at silence than parties, I said with a smile. She handed me a glass. Then make a toast. To what? I raised it slowly. To the ashes that made me. She clinked her glass against mine. And to the storm you became, we laughed quietly. I stared at the skyline. Whispering to the night, they fear my name now. Sarah, but not because I'm powerful, because I survived. She looked at me with quiet admiration. So what now? What's next? I smiled. Maybe rest. Maybe a visit. The next morning, I stood before my mother's grave again. The lilies had wilted since Maya's visit, placed now with white roses from me. I crouched beside the stone, brushing the dust away gently. I made it, Ma, I whispered. Every fall, every wound it led here. The breeze carried the faint sound of applause from somewhere distant. Or maybe it was just my memory replaying last night. I closed my eyes. You always said silence has power. You were right. They mocked my dreams, Ma. But my silence became my storm. For a long time, I stayed there, just listening to the wind, to my heartbeat, to the peace I'd been chasing for years, finally catching up to me. When I finally stood, I felt lighter. The world, the noise, the betrayal, all of it seemed smaller now. I didn't need revenge, validation, or even their applause anymore. I just needed this moment. I looked up at the open sky and whispered one last time, I made it, Ma. And for the first time in years, I believed it completely. The office was empty when I finally returned. The city outside was asleep, but my reflection wasn't. Tit stared back at me from the glass wall, quiet and patient. Sarah's voice came softly from behind. You're still here? Yeah, I murmured, eyes on my reflection. I just wanted to see something. She walked closer. Your trophies are shining brighter than ever. What more is there to see? I smiled faintly. Not them. Him. The man in the mirror, I said, nodding toward my reflection. I don't recognize him anymore. Sarah tilted her head. That's a good thing, isn't it? Maybe? I took a slow breath. The man I used to be, he was naive. Trusted to easily, broke too quickly. But this one learned how to build fire from ashes. She leaned against the glass table. And do you miss the old you? I thought for a long moment. Sometimes, he dreamed without fear. He believed love could fix everything. I envy that version of me, but he had to die so I could live. Sarah was silent for a while, then said quietly, You sound like someone who finally forgave himself. I looked back at her. Maybe I did. Maybe that's what all this was really about. Not revenge, not success. Just peace. She smiled. Then you found it, I whispered. At a price, but worth it. I turned toward the mirror again. The light from the desk lamp cast faint lines across my face. Scars I'd once hidden now caught the glow. Funny, said half to myself. I used to hate these scars. I thought they made me look weak. Sarah chuckled softly. They make you look human. No, I said, shaking my head. They make me look real. Every line, every wound, it's a reminder. I didn't survive despite the pain. I survived through it. Yeah. She watched me carefully. You sound like you're saying goodbye. In a way, I am. I touched the mirror's surface. To the boy who begged for love, to the man who fought for validation, they both lived inside me too long. It's time they rest. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of everything I'd become. Sarah whispered, So what happens now? I smiled. Now I live. Not for revenge, not for redemption. Just for me? She nodded slowly. You finally found yourself, Ryan. Yeah, I said softly, eyes still locked with my reflection. And I like the man I found. I turned off the lamp. The room dimmed until only my silhouette remained in the glass. In that moment, I whispered the truth that had carried me through every fall, every storm, every silent night. Sometimes, losing everything is the only way to find yourself. And as I walked away, the man in the mirror smiled, back strong, whole, unafraid.